I got back into the work world is a story that I like to tell other women who have stepped out of the work world for reasons similar to mine to have what I consider to be a full-fledged career as a mother. I started, so this goes back all the way back to being a rabbi's daughter. I grew up in a household where there were constantly famous people coming over, or my parents were very involved in big galas for the opera or the Philharmonic, to which they would take me. So I grew up in a world of important people and events. I understood that world. And my ex-husband was part of a very big growing company. And I understood, I have to say this honestly, what being a corporate wife meant and how to entertain in that world. And I did that for this large company as the, quote, wife. I was also a major volunteer in the community. So I was the PTA president, I was the Cub Scout den leader, I was on the board of the Children's Museum. Anything and everything in which I could be involved, I was. So when the time came that both the business and the marriage were ending, I had a realization that I was going to have to earn a living, and I had to make a decision. Do I go back to social work, which I have not been doing now for 10 years, or do I make an inventory of all the skills I have learned in what I've been doing as a community activist, a community volunteer, and entertaining in my husband's company, and start a business? And I made the determination that that's what I was going to do. That I had accumulated a real skill set in those 10 years that was marketable. And I started a company, Susan Gladstone and Associates. It was just me, but it sounded better to have some associates. So I started a company, and with the same amount of enthusiasm and energy that I'd put into being a mom, I worked very hard at starting this company and getting it off the ground and making myself known. So by networking and going to every possible networking thing and volunteering for every possible thing within this community of people doing what became the world of special events. And my company grew. And eventually grew large enough that I drew the attention of another single woman who had a much larger event production company. And we combined forces and we became quite a force. And we began producing many of the really big, high-level corporate and social events in the Miami, particularly in Dade County, but somewhat in Broward. All the Super Bowls, which I'm happy to say this time because I don't have the energy for it anymore. I didn't do, but I did 2 Super Bowls, all of those events. Every new building that opened in Miami, every new mall that opened, we were doing the events. Every gala that was happening in town. It was a really full-time job. It was probably hard on my kids who had had me at home for 10 years and now almost never saw me. But I was very determined to be the best at this, just as I had been the best at being a mom. And eventually we came to the attention of FIU, my alma mater. They had produced a small wine and food festival, and now they were interested in growing it. And they heard about us, and they hired us to begin producing what became the South Beach Wine and Food Festival. So we were the first outside production company, other than faculty, to work on that event. And you know, today it's the largest wine and food festival in the world, if not the country. And about 5 years into that, the dean of the School of Hospitality Management at FIU came to me and said, "Wow, I wish you had a master's degree. I really need someone like you to teach special event management." And I said, "I do." And so he asked me at that time if I would be willing to leave this company and come aboard as a professor at FIU. And I gave it a lot of thought because I had worked very hard to grow this company, but frankly, I'd been doing it for about 10 years, and I had, zero social life, and I wasn't seeing my kids, and I loved the idea of teaching. Plus, they dangled the idea of teaching in China because they had a school in China in front of me. So I took the leap, and I became Professor Gladstone, and I took a dozen trips to China, and I still worked on the South Beach Wine and Food Festival, but now that was my exclusive client. And then I took on 2 or 3 other nonprofits for whom I agreed to do all of their work pro bono. Now, when you're in the special event production, everybody asks you, so I had to make a statement, these are my charities, but I did, a number of major galas and things like that pro bono. And I was able to take my students to all of these events. So it was wonderful for them. They worked with me at the festival, plus all my other events. And I really loved being Professor Gladstone.